The moment the security guards reached for him, the room seemed to freeze in broad daylight, as if the sun itself had paused to witness what was about to happen. In a grand hall flooded with natural light from tall windows, surrounded by polished floors and rows of uniformed officials, a single father stood holding his young daughter's hand, his heart pounding louder than the murmurs around him. He did not look dangerous. He did not look threatening. Yet in that instant, he was treated like he did not belong, like his presence was a mistake that needed to be erased. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion in a world that often forgets them, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Thread. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The father had arrived early that morning, long before the ceremony began, carefully dressed in his only suit, one that had seen better days but was pressed with care. His daughter, small and bright-eyed, wore a simple dress that she had insisted on choosing herself. For him, this day mattered more than he could explain. It was not about the building, or the uniforms, or the prestige surrounding the event. It was about keeping a promise he had made years ago, back when life had been gentler, and his family had been whole. Since then, he had carried the weight of loss quietly, working long hours, skipping meals, and sacrificing sleep so his daughter could grow up feeling safe and loved. As the hall filled with important guests and decorated officers, eyes began to notice him for the wrong reasons. His worn shoes, his tense posture, the way he held his daughter protectively all seemed to mark him as someone out of place. He tried to stand still, to be invisible, but the closer the event came to starting, the more attention he drew. The first security guard approached with a stiff expression, followed by another, their movements calm but firm. They did not ask why he was there in any meaningful way. They did not look into his eyes long enough to see the exhaustion, the honesty, or the fear. They saw only a rule that needed enforcing. As hands reached for his arm, the father felt the familiar sting of humiliation, the same feeling he had known at job interviews that went nowhere and offices where his worth was measured by his appearance. His daughter sensed it too, tightening her grip, her small fingers trembling as she looked up at the uniforms towering over them. Around them, whispers grew louder, some filled with curiosity, others with quiet judgment. No one stepped forward. No one questioned the moment. In places like this, authority often speaks louder than truth. The father did not resist. Years of hardship had taught him that resistance only made things worse. Instead, he lowered his gaze, steadying his breath, silently reminding himself that his daughter was watching, learning how to face the world through his actions. He prepared himself for the walk of shame, for being escorted out under the bright daylight where everyone could see his failure. It felt like the final confirmation of what life had been telling him for years, that no matter how hard he tried, he would always be on the outside looking in. But then something shifted in the air. From across the hall, someone noticed the scene not with suspicion, but with recognition. A young woman in a formal uniform, standing among high-ranking officials, saw the father's face and froze. Her expression changed, not with anger, but with urgency. She stepped forward without hesitation, her movement cutting through the rigid formation of authority like a sudden gust of wind through still air. The security guards paused, confused by the interruption. The room grew quiet enough to hear footsteps echoing on marble. The young woman's presence carried weight, not just because of her rank, but because of who she was. She was the daughter of the general, raised in a world of discipline, honor, and responsibility. Yet what guided her now was not rank, but memory. She knew that men. Not from ceremonies or titles, but from a time when her life had taken a dark turn. Years ago, before the uniforms and recognition, she had been just another frightened child in need of help. When no one else noticed her struggle, this same man had stepped in, offering protection without expecting anything in return. He had been younger then, stronger, but his eyes were the same, kind and determined, shaped by sacrifice rather than pride. As she intervened, the truth unfolded in the open daylight, slowly and undeniably. The father was not an intruder. He was not a threat. He was the reason she was standing there at all. The reason she had survived, grown, and followed a path of service. The room listened as her words carried the weight of gratitude and respect, reshaping the narrative that moments ago had painted him as disposable. The change was immediate. The hands that had gripped his arm released. The posture of authority softened. Faces that once judged now reflected embarrassment, even shame. The father stood there stunned, unsure whether to believe what was happening. His daughter looked up at him, confusion giving way to relief as she felt his grip loosen, his shoulders straighten. Sunlight streamed through the windows as if to underline the moment, illuminating a truth too often ignored. A person's value cannot be measured by clothing, status, or silence. Sometimes the most powerful heroes are those who carry their strength quietly, who give without recognition, who endure without applause. The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The father and daughter were not escorted out. They were invited to stay. More than that, they were seen. For the first time in years, the father felt something he had almost forgotten: dignity. Not granted by a uniform or a title, but restored by acknowledgement and gratitude. As the event moved forward, whispers returned, but this time they were filled with admiration rather than judgment. The daughter of the general stood tall, not because of her lineage, but because she had chosen to speak up when it mattered. And the single father, standing in the daylight beside his child, realized that his quiet sacrifices had not vanished into nothing. They had rippled outward, shaping lives in ways he never imagined. Near the end of the day, as the hall slowly emptied and the sunlight softened, the father knelt beside his daughter, meeting her eyes. She smiled at him, proud and safe, and in that smile was every reason he had kept going through the hardest nights. He did not need applause. He did not need recognition. Knowing that his kindness had mattered was enough. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can echo through time and change lives in ways we may never see, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your engagement helps spread these stories of hope to others who need them. Before we end, we have one special request for you. Please comment below with a single word that represents what this story made you feel. Your words matter, and they help build a community rooted in compassion. In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, this single moment under the open daylight proved something powerful. True identity is revealed not by status, but by the good we leave behind, and sometimes, all it takes is one brave voice to remind the world of that truth.